Martha woke before sunrise as she had done for years, her body aching even before the first light touched the small farmhouse. The wooden floorboards creaked beneath her bare feet, and she rubbed her stiff legs, wishing she could move without pain. Life on the frontier was never easy, but lately, it had become almost unbearable. Each day brought the same chores: feeding the chickens, milking the cows, hauling water from the well, and tending to the fields. All of it felt heavier now, and Martha often wondered how much longer she could keep going. The farm was small, inherited from her parents, and every corner of it demanded attention. The soil was rocky and the tools were heavy, worn down from years of use. But Martha had grown up with the rhythm of this life, and despite the hardships, she loved the land. It was her home, and even on days when the pain seemed unbearable, she found a strange comfort in seeing the fields stretch endlessly under the morning sun. Yet, the pain in her legs was different from the usual tiredness of farm work. It had been coming on gradually, a dull ache at first that she ignored, telling herself it was just fatigue, but now it was constant. Sometimes it felt like her muscles were locked, refusing to bend or stretch no matter how hard she tried. Simple movements, bending to pick vegetables, climbing the steps to the barn, became small victories. Martha felt frustrated, even scared. Doctors were far away, and the remedies she had tried, from herbal salves to hot compresses, brought only fleeting relief. Despite the discomfort, Martha pushed herself to work. She knew the farm could not run on hope alone. The cows needed milking or the milk would spoil. The fields needed plowing or the crops would fail. Even as her legs trembled and her back ached, she found herself smiling at the small achievements of the day. A row of neat plants, a well-fed calf, or the sight of the sun setting over the horizon. These moments gave her strength, even if just for a little while. One afternoon, after hauling a particularly heavy basket of vegetables from the garden, Martha sank onto the porch steps, gasping for breath. Her legs shook uncontrollably, and she pressed her palms to her thighs, hoping the pain would ease. She closed her eyes, letting herself rest for a moment, when she heard the familiar sound of hooves on the dirt road. It was Jake, a cowboy who occasionally passed through town. He was tall, with weathered hands and a calm presence that made people feel safe. Jake was known in the area not just for his work with horses, but for his knowledge of simple remedies and treatments that had been passed down through generations of frontier families. When he saw Martha sitting on the steps, he dismounted and walked over, his boots crunching on the gravel. "You look worn out, Martha," he said gently. "Everything all right?" Martha hesitated. She wasn't used to asking for help. Pride and stubbornness had carried her through many tough days. But today the ache in her legs felt heavier than ever, and she found herself nodding. It's just my legs. They won't move the way they used to," she admitted quietly. Jake crouched beside her, examining her legs carefully. He nodded thoughtfully. "You've been pushing yourself too hard. These muscles, they're locked up. You need care, not punishment." For a moment, Martha felt a mix of relief and embarrassment. She had always been strong, expected to manage on her own, but perhaps she had been foolish to ignore the pain for so long. Jake offered her a simple solution, a method of massage and gentle stretches that could loosen her muscles and ease the discomfort. She agreed hesitantly, hoping it might bring some relief. Over the next hour, Jake showed her how to relax her legs, pressing gently on sore spots, teaching her ways to stretch without causing more pain. Martha felt sensations she had almost forgotten: relief, warmth, and for brief moments, freedom of movement. Though the effect was temporary, it filled her with hope. Perhaps there was a way to manage this pain and still live her life on the farm. After the session, Martha felt exhausted but strangely lighter. She realized that asking for help didn't make her weak. In fact, it had given her the courage to face her daily tasks with a little more strength. The sun was beginning to set, painting the fields in golden hues. Martha leaned back, watching the sky, and allowed herself a small, contented smile. As days turned into weeks, Martha's routine began to include these sessions with Jake. They weren't frequent, but enough to give her some relief. She started noticing small changes. Her steps became steadier, she could bend more easily, and the burning sensation in her muscles had softened. While the pain never fully disappeared, these moments of respite reminded her that she was not alone. Life on the farm remained challenging. Droughts and unpredictable weather tested her resilience, The animals needed constant care, and the soil demanded relentless labor. But Martha began to approach her work differently. She learned to pace herself, taking breaks when necessary and using techniques Jake had taught her to prevent further strain. Even on days when the pain returned fiercely, she could manage it better, knowing that relief, however temporary, was possible. The community around her began to notice the change too. Neighbors who had once seen her as frail or stubborn now treated her with a quiet respect. They admired her determination to keep the farm running despite the obstacles. Martha's story became a reminder that strength wasn't measured by the absence of suffering, but by the courage to keep going in spite of it. One evening, as Martha sat on the porch looking over the fields, she reflected on the journey she had begun. She had learned a valuable lesson, that asking for help was not shameful, and that even small steps could lead to meaningful progress. Her connection with Jake was one of trust and support, a partnership built on mutual respect rather than neediness or obligation. He had shown her that even in the harshest conditions, compassion and care could make a difference. Though the frontier remained unforgiving, Martha felt a renewed sense of purpose. Each day was still hard, but now she approached it with patience, understanding, and a little hope. The pain in her legs might never fully go away, but she had discovered ways to live alongside it, finding moments of relief and joy in the rhythm of farm life. As night fell over the farm, Martha stood and stretched gently, feeling the cool air on her skin. She looked at the stars beginning to twinkle in the clear sky and felt a quiet pride. She had faced hardship, pain, and isolation, yet she remained steadfast. Tomorrow would bring more work, more challenges, but she was ready. The farm was her home, her responsibility, and with each passing day she learned to navigate life's difficulties with courage and resilience. The next morning, Martha woke to the sound of roosters crowing and the soft rustle of wind through the trees. Her legs ached as usual, but there was a sense of determination in her movements now. The small victories from the past weeks gave her hope. Even though the pain never fully left, she had learned to manage it and adapt. Each day was still a challenge, but Martha was beginning to feel that she could survive and even thrive on the farm she loved so dearly. The fields awaited her, wide stretches of soil that had to be plowed and tended, or the crops would suffer. Martha moved slowly, stretching gently before taking the first steps toward the barn. She paused at the well, letting the cool morning air wash over her, then began hauling water, careful not to overstrain her legs. Each movement reminded her that life on the frontier was not forgiving, yet her determination had grown stronger than the pain. Over the next few weeks, the rhythm of farm life continued. Martha's connection with Jake grew as well, though it was not one of romance but of trust and mutual respect. He would often visit to check on her progress and offer guidance. Sometimes he would bring herbs or simple remedies. Other times just encouragement and practical advice. Martha appreciated these visits, not only for the relief they brought but for the reassurance that she was not facing life's hardships alone. One particularly hot afternoon, the farm faced a new challenge. The weather had been dry for days and the soil had begun to crack under the sun's heat. The crops were thirsty and the animals needed water more than ever. Martha felt a twinge of panic. She knew she had to act fast, but her body protested every step. The baskets of water felt heavier than usual. Her legs stiffened painfully, and she realized she could not keep up the work alone. Jake happened to ride by at that moment, noticing the strain on Martha's face. Without a word, he dismounted and helped her carry the heavier buckets. "Take your time," he said. "We'll get this done together." Relief washed over Martha. The physical support was invaluable, but it was the emotional reassurance that mattered most. For the first time, she truly felt that asking for help was not weakness, but a part of survival. With Jake's assistance, she managed to water the crops and tend to the animals. Though exhausted, she felt a sense of accomplishment and calm pride. As the days passed, Martha realized that survival on the frontier required more than strength. It demanded patience, wisdom, and the courage to accept help when needed. She began creating routines that allowed her to conserve energy while still keeping the farm running. Early mornings were for chores that required mobility, while afternoons were for lighter tasks, rest, and tending to her health. She practiced the stretches and techniques Jake had taught her, and slowly she noticed subtle improvements. Movements that had once seemed impossible became manageable. The farm was not without its setbacks. A sudden storm one evening tore through the fields, flattening some of the young crops and scattering the chickens. Martha's heart sank as she surveyed the damage. She felt the familiar ache in her legs, heavier this time from exhaustion and worry. Yet instead of despair, she felt determination. The storm was a reminder that life on the frontier was unpredictable, but resilience meant facing challenges head-on. With Jake's guidance, she repaired the fences, gathered the scattered chickens, and salvaged what crops she could. Community support also began to grow. Neighbors who had once seen Martha as fragile now offered practical assistance. Some helped with heavy lifting, others shared advice or brought small gifts of food and supplies. These acts of kindness reminded Martha that while the frontier demanded self-reliance, it also thrived on cooperation and shared effort. She began to feel a sense of belonging and respect within the small farming community. One quiet evening, after a long day of work, Martha sat on the porch, looking at the golden fields bathed in the fading sunlight. She reflected on the journey she had taken over the past months. Pain had been a constant companion, but she had learned to live with it, to manage it, and even to find moments of joy amidst the hardship. The connection she shared with Jake was no longer about relief from discomfort alone. It had become a symbol of trust, care, and shared experience. As the frontier winter approached, Martha prepared for the cold months ahead. She stocked firewood, repaired the roof, and ensured the animals had adequate shelter. Each task was a reminder that life was demanding, but also that she was capable. Her movements were slower, more deliberate, and her body protested at times, but she had learned to listen to it. She paced herself, balancing work and rest, knowing that her health was as important as the farm itself. The hardest lesson Martha learned was that progress could be slow, and setbacks were inevitable. There were days when the pain seemed worse, when chores felt impossible, and when the weight of responsibility pressed heavily on her shoulders. On those days, she relied on the support of Jake, the neighbors, and the small routines she had developed. Gradually, she discovered that strength was not measured by perfection or the absence of struggle, but by persistence, adaptability, and the courage to keep moving forward despite obstacles. By spring, the farm was flourishing once more. The crops had begun to grow, animals thrived, and the soil seemed healthier after months of careful tending. Martha felt a sense of pride and accomplishment that went beyond mere survival. She had faced immense physical and emotional challenges and had emerged stronger, wiser, and more resilient. Her story became an inspiration to others in the community, showing that hardship could be met with determination and hope. One afternoon, as Martha worked in the garden, she paused to stretch her legs, feeling the familiar ache but recognizing the progress she had made. Jake rode by, smiling as he saw her tending the crops with steady hands. "You're doing well, Martha," he said. "Better than anyone could expect." Martha smiled back, feeling warmth and gratitude. "I couldn't have done it alone," she admitted. "I've learned that strength isn't about handling everything myself. It's about knowing when to ask for help and taking small steps forward each day." The sun set over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Martha stood for a moment, looking at the vast fields she had nurtured, feeling a sense of quiet triumph. Life on the frontier was never easy, and her pain might never fully disappear, but she had discovered ways to live with it, to find relief, and to embrace the joys of her work and her home. As night fell, Martha returned to the farmhouse tired but satisfied. She prepared a simple meal, tending to her small needs with care and mindfulness. Sitting by the fire, she reflected on the months of struggle and growth. She realized that life was not about perfection or comfort, but about resilience, courage, and the ability to continue despite hardships. The frontier would continue to challenge her, bringing storms, droughts, and the endless demands of farm life. Yet Martha faced the future with quiet confidence. She had learned to balance pain and work, independence and help, effort and rest. Each day brought new challenges, but also new opportunities for small victories and moments of joy. In the end, Martha's journey was not only about survival, but about discovery of her own strength, of the support of others, and of the value of persistence in the face of adversity. Her life on the farm was a testament to the human spirit, showing that even in the harshest conditions, courage, care, and determination could make all the difference. Martha went to bed that night, her body weary but her mind at peace. She had faced months of unrelenting challenges, yet she had adapted, learned, and grown. The pain in her legs was still there, but it no longer controlled her life. She had found a rhythm, a way to manage the hardships, and a quiet joy in her work and her home. As she drifted to sleep, Martha felt a sense of hope for the days ahead. Life on the frontier would always be demanding, but she knew she was ready. With resilience, care, and the support of those she trusted, she could face whatever came next, one step at a time.